You're listening to the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast, the podcast that keeps your practice sharp and your clients happy. I'm your host, immigration lawyer John Khosravi, and every week we're bringing you insights, tips, and real-world conversations with top immigration attorneys and industry leaders. Whether you're here to grow your practice, stay on top of the latest trends, or get inspired, you're in the right place. Ready? Let's go. Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Thanks for joining us. We're doing this live as we do on this Monday, top 10 things for immigration lawyers that I've learned last week that I want to share. But you can find this recording in our podcast, audio, and YouTube as well. But again, it's going live on LinkedIn, on my personal LinkedIn page, John Khosravi, and on the Instagram page for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. I highly recommend joining that page. It's a lot of fun, a lot of content, statistics, all these kind of things that can make your practice better. Because that's what we do at the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox. We're trying to make you a better immigration attorney. Doing it yourself, we're just adding that extra oomph on there and taking the next level with data, samples of cases, information, our private community page, videos, podcasts, and just so much more stuff. The magazine, which will probably be coming out in 7 to 10 days, issue number 10. We got our 7 or 8 articles that are really good. You're going to enjoy. I'll be promoting that and let you know how to get there. But you can catch our 9 previous issues of the Toolbox magazine by going to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com and checking it out there. There's just so much information can help you. The private community page is really helpful too. If you're a lawyer, it's free. Just send me your info, bar info, so I know you're actually a lawyer in private practice, and we can add you there. And not only will there be CLEs and white label stuff and AEO reviewed decisions that we explain and go through, but also premium courses. For example, marriage green cards. You want to get involved in immigration law, become a better immigration attorney, get involved in the family side, work from home like I do, instead of working, going to court constantly and stuff like that. We have a course that breaks it all down, concept processing, affidavits of support, all that kind of stuff, as well as our new courses, E2 immigrant investor, not non-immigrant investor, and EB1 extraordinary ability green cards. How do you apply for those? How does it all work? And you have samples to really hold your hand through it. I really recommend getting into that. If you want more information, email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. We have a landing page that's going to be worked on, made better, but the basics are there. If you go to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com courses, you'll see links that can help. Having said all that, none of the information provided here is intended as individual legal guidance. Please consult with an immigration attorney about your case, but y'all know that already. Let's get it started. So the first note I want to make is biometrics appointments. We had a client who wanted to push back his biometrics since he wasn't able to make the date that was signed for him. It was an adjustment case. So we told him nowadays they made it simpler. Just go to the USCIS website, your my.uscis.gov account, and there you can request that they push back the date. You can kind of have a calendar system that clicks there. And he went to do that, and he saw there's actually an earlier date. So he went and took care of an earlier date. So I thought it was really interesting. The sooner you get the biometrics done, the sooner other things could potentially move forward. So it's not a bad idea if you have clients who are especially in a rush for them to log into their myusis.gov account and seeing if there's an earlier biometrics date available to get that out of the way and get a new notice for that. I didn't know they'll have earlier times. I always thought it was going to be later times, and I haven't. In the past, we'd call USCIS since it became an online system. I haven't really got into it, hadn't really come up. But now learning that there's earlier dates, I thought I'd share that. That might be one trick to be able to get the case up running faster that I want to share with you. Tip number 2 is from Samir Kedekar. We've been weekly talking about this, all the crazy NTAs we're getting. For example, when someone has an H-1B and they're doing H-1B transfer, the previous H-1B employer terminates the H-1B, notifies USCIS, and then the person getting a notice to appear. I'm actually going to be interviewing Samir because he's been really the top lawyer, it seems, handling and dealing with this stuff, accumulating a lot of examples. And one of the worst examples he posted this week, we'll have in our show notes as well, is saying, so USC is now issuing NTAs to alleged B2 overstays. So these are people who file timely B2 extension notices. And while it's pending, historically people can stay here while it's pending, they're issued notices to appeal in immigration court for being out of status. So technically, their tourist visa status expired, that one pending. It's a pretty disastrous situation. He also talks about some H-1B cases that went to immigration court. One judge understood the scenario and terminated the case so the person could go resume their H-1B transfer, which was approved. Another judge got a continuance for more when wasn't really sure what's going on. So it's a pretty messed up situation. It makes it almost like, we're either saying people maintain status, underlying status, like if they're an F1 student, don't quit school, or we're pushing people to do consular processing now because the risks of being detained aren't too high still because the numbers aren't there, but it seems like it's edging up. So that's what I want to share with you to be aware on any case you're doing. If the person doesn't have 100% status, and who knows, sometimes they have status, They don't have the courtesy of a grace period, which was the whole point of grace period, but they're not going to be giving that more and more. Number three, DACA renewal denied on discretion. So I don't have all the information, but a colleague had posted that they had filed for renewal of the DACA, and the person didn't have any criminal history, and the renewal was denied on discretion. So that's a really messed up situation. Now we know that recently, in the last like 10 days, when I'm recording this, there was an increase in people who have J1 home residency requirement waivers that are approved by the home embassy, and the case being sent to the Department of State. And I talked about this last week, getting their J1s denied as a matter of policy by the Department of State. So we do see that this government is using discretion to the max, and something to be careful of. And things that were, shoe-ins or obvious, and you renewed DACA 8 times already. It still doesn't mean the ninth time is going to be the charm. So be very familiar with that. Number four is social media and consular reviews. Important information from a colleague, Amy Link. I'm going to have her information shown us as well, saying anyone on upcoming consular interview abroad, a client's non-immigrant visa history was temporarily held up. Their visa was because their social media accounts were set to private. After the interview went smoothly, the officer handed my client a 221G issue, explaining a decision could not be made until their social media was set to public. To avoid a similar delay, set your social media to public for the period surrounding their consular appointment. Taking this proactive step should help ensure the interview goes smooth as possible. So that's really important. Yeah, the clients, I got to start telling people that too. When the interview is happening, make it public to avoid any kind of stuff. Some people may have personal stuff. I mean, a lot of times it's family and kids. You don't want the world to see that. That's why you make it private. It's not like you do anything secret, but you don't want your kids' pictures to be everywhere. Family, friends, and stuff are part of a small like Instagram group or a Facebook group where you're posting these. But the government is doing what it does. So just be mindful. Have them keep it open for a couple of days. Tip number five was another post I read where a client, not client, it was a person who went to their visa interview. And at the visa interview, the officer said, okay, what I want you to do is take your passport to CBP at the border so they can do biometrics for you. This is Mexico. And then come back. So the person goes to CBP, goes to for biometrics ostensibly. And then there they detain him, arrest him, and say, oh, you have an old warrant from 20 years ago when you're in the US. And the guy forgot about it, apparently. And they arrested him. So it was a tactic by the embassy to send the person from being arrested instead of just denying the visa, have to stay in his home country. Like, why not increase our prison population? Those contracts have to be paid for somehow. So that's what we're seeing there. Number six is a devastating situation when it comes to the new naturalization memo. I didn't get an email from USCIS, but Friday or Saturday night, one of my colleagues forwarded to me saying, have you seen this? USCIS updated its policy manual. Well, I checked the policy manual. There are no updates in the place that they said they were, but essentially it's updated its policy on citizenship. Whereas it's not a minimum to have the basics of good moral character and satisfying the naturalization and 400 basics. But now they're also looking for, more than that. So it's kind of like, what's more than that? It's the totality of the circumstances situation. And they have very vague explanation of what it is. So it's going to leave it strongly to the, basis of the officer. They have to take notes on what they do. And I guess, if they're proving too many cases, they come back and say, hey, you're not denying enough. So it opens up to massive amounts of discretion. So this policy memorandum came out August 15th, 2025. It's like 4 pages. And again, when I checked the policy manual, I didn't see stuff there. But they're saying they put a greater emphasis on the alien's positive attributes and contributions in good moral character determinations. These positive factors include, but are not limited to, sustained community involvement and contribution to U.S. What is that? Family caregiving responsibility and ties to the U.S., educational attainment, stable and lawful employment history and achievements. What if they had work authorization before adjusted? That's legal. Is that outside the period of good moral character? Who knows? Length of lawful residence in the United States. The minimum is 5 or 3 years. What does the length have to do with that? No. Compliance with tax obligations and financial responsibility in the United States. Greater scrutiny of disqualifying behavior and actions. And like it says, in assessing acts that are unlawful or contrary to the average behavior of citizens of the community in which the alien resides, USCIS will review all available documents and question aliens seeking naturalization regarding the specific circumstances of their actions to determine if a particular situation act should bar an alien from naturalization. Okay. Interesting, there's a situation with DUIs. I was like, well, even one DUI bad? What's going on? Here it says conditional bars good moral character, such as controlled substance violations, 2 or more convictions for driving under the influence, false claim to U.S. citizenship, unlawful voting or unlawful voter registration or lawful voting. Well, false claim and voting and stuff, is that a conditional bar? Or is that you're screwed? And then last administration, they had it where just one DUI could be a problem at any time, not necessarily in the 5 year look back. But here they're saying two or more convictions driving under influence. So they're kind of not going hardcore there. And then rehabilitation reformation, when it comes to taxes, it says full payment of overdue taxes. But the good moral character says having a payment plan, for example, for taxes. Okay, so we're going to see how this all actually works out. Not much details in the memo other than saying things are going to change. We'll have to see what they change in the policy manual and really in practice how this all actually pans out. That's a system, big change that's happening, and frankly, our that throws out our fee structure for citizenship. We have a couple where people hired us right now for cases we're not going to file in 3 4 months. Probably not going to change the fees on them, but future ones might have to do it hourly. Might have to really dig in their situation to see because they might open it up towards having to prove all this extra stuff that we're not accustomed to or needing to include. So that has a big effect on attorney fees as well when it comes to these cases. Tip number 7 is a memo that's going around Telegram. A client forwarded it to me. The State Department is explaining for Iranians what is considered a minority that has, persecution. And so that's really important because part of the travel ban against Iranians is an exception for immigrant visas that says that if they're a member of, a community that has there's a terminology for it, but abused essentially. Iran has certain religious minorities, ethnic ones that especially for example, if you're Jewish in Iran, you're Baha'i in Iranian, that you're gonna, obviously face discrimination there. And so they list out a bunch of people that could be these Sunni Muslims, Sufi Muslims, Sabian, Manideans. I didn't know there are any left. Kurds, Jews, Christians, Baluch, Baha'i, Azerbaijani Turks, Azeris, which is a third of the population. So, how was the Arabs? These are Arabs, Iranians that are the Southwest that have Arab background, Zoroastrians, Yarsans. I'm not sure what that is. But they're not saying like it's 100% this list is included. You got to look deeper and ask people, have to document it, be able to explain why they have individualized persecution. It says actually it's not necessary applicant have experienced individualized persecution, but then you go into detail explaining, hey, look, I can't go to school. People who deal with the Iranian case know this. I can't go to university. They call me, hassle my job. I can't get jobs anywhere. There's all these persecutions that minorities feel, but there's nothing game changing in this telegram. It's things I assumed anyways that we are going to prep for when the interview happens. But I just want to share something allegedly exists. Who knows if it's genuine or not? But those kind of help you out. Just aside from this alleged memo that came out, that Iranian cases have that kind of stuff because not everyone handles day-to-day Iranian cases. So it's good to know. All right, number 8, best practices. I had a person contact me for removal of conditions. It hired me, and I'm like, "Well, I need copies of your file." And like, well, what happened is my ex-husband and I had one email address that we used together, and we are using that to communicate with the attorney. But when we got divorced, he cut off. He changed the password on that email and deleted everything. So like, and so we don't have access to any information. I don't know what happened, who the attorney was, even I don't have anything. And so I was just worried because right when that happened, I had one client who reached us out and they gave an email address, which was one of their names. And I'm like, I need the other person's email too. And then they sent an email that had their name in it too. So it looked like the applicant had two email addresses that were sending us, that including the petitioner. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? They're like, oh, no, that's a joint one that we use. I'm like, no, I don't want no joint ones. After, immediately after seeing this, I'm like, I need each person has to have their separate email address for communications to avoid this kind of stuff from popping up, becoming a problem for people later. So as best practices, have each person have their own personal individual email, not something group or the other person controls when it's kind of joint cases because it can be problematic. Number 9, and I talked about this one in my discussion with I think it was Ruby a couple of days ago, a couple episodes ago, Ruby Powers in our monthly interview that we have. But it's that I hired a plumber. I had a couple plumbers come check out my house and give that price estimates. The one that gave the best price was supposed to email me, and I was waiting for the email, waiting for the email. Eventually, I didn't get it, so I went somewhere else, and it cost 4 times the price. And then I was like searching for like another plumbing issue. When you have a house, there's plumbing issues, AC issues, this issue, that issue. It's like it's a huge headache, but nonetheless. So when I did a search for plumber, it came up in like other emails or something like that. Spam. It wasn't even spam. It was some crazy folder. I don't know where it was, but it was in my main folder. And I'm like, what's this? And I saw unread email and I checked it. I was like, oh, the guy had sent an email, but I didn't see it. And I was like, oh, I wish he had texted me to let me know because he was texting me beforehand. I wish he had texted me to let me know he sent it and for me to check my spam folder, check my emails and stuff like that. Or else I would have straight hired him. So that immediately caused it where I updated my systems, and we have a CRM where you can send text messages. When I move a case to the from a pipeline that goes from consultation had to a consultation follow up sent pipeline or column, and auto triggers an email to be sent out that says, "Hey, we just sent you a recap explanation of our consultation. Please let us know if you didn't receive it." And that way they could jump in and push, just make sure they got it. They way we know we communicate well. That way they know they can check their emails immediately, look into it. So it becomes really important. So I strongly recommend that practice tip to make sure you close on these cases and don't miss out. And number 10, adding to the doom and gloom that I've been reporting on recently, is I was reading this chapter of this book was brought to my attention. Well, the author is a gentleman named Ludwig von Mises. He was an economics writer, head of the Austrian School of Economics, essentially headed. He was unfortunately a Jewish person who had to escape totalitarianism, and Nazism in Germany to the United States, and he wrote a book about his focus is on economics, about how economic choices, particularly economic nationalism, creates problems for society. And there's a lot of immigration components that happen to it. And here he was tracking like Italy, in particular Nazi Germany, when they start creating these economic protectionism for the U.S. worker, if you will, or the domestic worker. They immediately, start thinking of outsiders or overpopulation of foreigners in the United States as people that are both harm the economy and so because they inflict harm on locals, they have no inhibition on inflicting harm on those aliens, preventing them from being here, kicking them out, and the growth of procedures for that, which we're seeing right now, obviously with the growth of ICE and the like. But this article was really interesting. It was long, and I less and less feel like reading stuff that's outside of immigration law or some personal, like spiritual kind of stuff that I read. But so I put this in ChatGPT. I'm like, give me a synopsis, and it broke me down. It's like, hey, do you want to do a timeline of what to do to prepare for this, all this kind of stuff? I'm like, oh, that's kind of a crazy situation. Sure. And so I started going back and forth with ChatGPT, and there was much back and forth every time I write something. That's like, do you want me to analyze it on this, and it made some interesting notes about what you can expect under immigration case volume forecast under economic nationalism, which again was what we're going for right now. Now, before I start, one thing about the numbers and the kind of say, there's always a worry what's going to happen with the immigration field for immigration lawyers. It's going to be business and work. I'm going to go through that right now based on what ChatGPT says. Take it for what it's worth. There's a lot of political shifts that can happen, so who knows about the future. But practically, what I'm seeing is, although there's going to potentially be the totality decline in people going through the immigration process, both in the United States and abroad, except for maybe removal proceedings, but they're finding ways to bypass removal proceedings with expedited removal. This doesn't mean immigration business is going to go down because a majority of people don't hire immigration attorneys. And what I'm seeing right now when I go to USCIS interviews for adjustment cases, naturalization, whereas 5 years ago, I go there, maybe 2 out of 10 people would have an attorney sitting with them. Now, when I go this last couple of months, 9 out of 10 people will have immigration lawyers there. I saw a whole bunch of friends and colleagues in LA who I haven't seen in years because of the pandemic and everything. Everyone's sitting with their lawyers. So the pie potentially is getting smaller, but the pieces of that pie are going to be more attorneys. Doesn't necessarily mean a downflow there, but there's always the stress of it. Clients are going to be worried, the confusion and unknowns of what happens, and just the extra work and cost that it's going to put on people. So it's a lot. But some interesting things that came out of it, they're saying is like in the beginning, a decline in employment-based immigration, increased labor market tests, increased scrutiny appear, which we're seeing right now. J1 waivers, 2 year home residency can't get approved, so a person can't come. More restrictive on H1B transfers and the like. And then family based saying it's stable, but it'll slow down due to vetting in the first 2 years of this. Asylum humanitarian cases will rise due to geopolitical instability. And we're seeing more cases. This has just been a long term trend for the last 10 years. Deportation uptake, so that's like growth field that's happening. And corporate compliance, which is an interesting thing because they're going to be more restrictive and ICE coming in, so more not I-9 compliance and like it's become a bigger component of operations. Then it's saying in 3 to 5 years, restrictions policies are fully implemented. Significant drop, many work visa categories narrowed only to high skilled shortage roles. And that we're seeing with the H1B changes that have been proposed is to have only the highest income level of jobs. That's kind of what it's going for. Family based immigration, slight decline as chain migration because of political target. Asylum, large growth, asylum humanitarian cases, deportation, surge in ICE arrest, and expedited removal proceedings. I mean, this is ChatGPT. There's no expedited removal proceedings, but it's just potential removal proceedings. And corporate compliance seeing a peak. as ongoing guidance is needed to avoid penalties. Because imagine it can increase that kind of stuff. Then year 6 and 10, minimal visas for work, STEM related defense, critical infrastructure only. Further drop in family citizenship, though U.S. citizens still able to petition immediate relatives. Asylum humanitarian remains high, deportation remains high, and corporate compliance remains stable. So what it's suggesting is to increase removal practice, asylum, which a lot of people are difficulty in because it's so hard. Unless we create better systems to make it more cost effective, less stressful. But I guess the corporate compliance was an aspect I didn't think about, which was really they're really pushing, saying, hey, that's a growth field right now for small and large corporations to have systems for I-9 compliance audits that happen with it, staffing, services before they get hit, so you could check it out. And there's a lot of companies that already do that, but to market more there, that could be an interesting factor to have in business. So I just thought, hey, that's some interesting information I'll share with everybody on the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast, because this is where you come to get the information you need to become a great immigration attorney and immigration law firm. Thank you so much, Aaron, for listening. Again, we have our E2 course, immigrant investor course, not immigrant investor, I guess immigrant investor is EB5. E2 investor owner, EB1A, marriage, green cards, consular processing. These are really high end areas of immigration that should continue. And so I want to help you learn how to do that. We have the premium courses for you. And if not those, come see our free CLEs, free white label content. All you got to do is be a lawyer. Email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. And we'll join the private Circle Lattice community page where we show a lot of content. And it's all in one place off Facebook, which is requested by many. And we get to know each other better too. You'll be on our radar so we can communicate, have you on the show, write articles for the magazine to help promote you and your practice and help everyone at large become a better immigration practitioner. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. If you like this episode, follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, where we post the latest statistics, tips, and more. And stay tuned for more from the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox podcast.